Are you and your partner stuck in the same frustrating disagreements no matter how much you talk, follow advice, or agree to handle things differently? If so, there's a good chance you're unknowingly making one of five common mistakes about how to handle issues in your relationship. Here's the thing. It's likely because, like most couples, you don't have a built in way to stay connected when stress hits, to do lists explode. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the five biggest mistakes couples make when it comes to communication and connection. I'm going to share with you why these mistakes keep you stuck and what to do instead. And don't forget, stick around till the end because I'll also share a quick 2-minute tip that my clients love when you need to reset but don't have time for a full conversation. Mistake number one, focusing on fixing fights instead of strengthening connection. Right? A lot of couples pour all their energy into recovering from arguments or bracing for the next blow up. But what often gets missed is how much easier it is to recover or even avoid the blow up when you already feel close and the connection is already there. Research from the doctors Gottman shows couples who stay emotionally connected in everyday moments are less likely to let conflict escalate. They're also way more likely to see arguments as speed bumps instead of mountains. They bounce back faster because they've built a cushion of connection. In other words, it's not that strong couples don't fight, but the difference is communication is better when their connection gives them something soft to land on. So if you don't have this connection in your relationship, you end up in damage control mode, always putting out fires. Focus on managing connection, not just conflict. After we made that one shift, one of my client couples, they started adding a few, tiny, doable connection habits into their daily routine. Okay. And within a few weeks, tension flared up less often because they had a cushion of connection to fall back on. Mistake number two, missing subtle warning signs. Fights don't start with yelling. They start with tiny disconnections, a tone shift, silence, an eye roll. You pretend not to notice. Okay? By the time you realize that something's off, you're mid-fight and or totally shut down. One couple told me, I don't think anything is ever going to change in our relationship because these fights and disagreements, they come out of nowhere. But when we look closer, nowhere definitely started somewhere. They learn to identify their relationship's smoke signals, those subtle cues that tension is building. There's always smoke before the fire erupts. Remember that. What are those smoke signals in your relationship? What are those cues that you know once you see them, once you feel them, this is going nowhere? Let me know in the comments. What are those smoke signals? Once that couple could see their warning signs, like tone shifts and withdrawal, they started catching the disconnection before it spiraled. You can't put out small fires if you don't notice it until it's big and raging. So catching that disconnection early, it gives you the space to course correct before the fire erupts. Mistake three, relying on willpower during landmine moments. Couples try to power through hard moments by trying harder or telling themselves, next time I'll stay calm. Next time I won't shut down. Next time I'll say it better. They're relying on willpower. But when stress hits, when you're triggered, old patterns take over, willpower does not stand a chance. Because when we're in overwhelm, okay, we're not having a willpower issue, we're having a brain power issue. Your thinking brain, the front part of your brain, it takes a back seat, and your emotional brain jumps behind the wheel shouting, protect, protect. Everything you say or do is wired for survival. This is an ancient system that your body created to protect you from lions millions of years ago. It's hard to will your way out of millions of years of evolution. I've tried. It doesn't work. So how do you deal with this situation? You work with your brain, not against it. Build in reset cues, Short, repeatable actions or phrases that help you interrupt the emotional flood in real time. One couple I worked with came up with a really simple phrase. When they would notice that they're starting to go down into that pit, one of them would look at the other and say, Houston, we have a problem. And that line became their anchor. It gave them something to say in the heat of the moment. Once spoken, they knew what to do because we mapped out clear actions to keep that fire small before it turned into an explosion. Okay? When things get heated, your nervous system needs more than good intentions. Your emotional brain, it can't read. It doesn't care what you wrote down. It doesn't care what you promised a week ago. It needs patterns, repetition, safety, reset cues to take the pressure off your thinking brain, which is hiding in the back seat, and give your body something familiar to do instead of react. Mistake 4, letting your story override your partner's intention. This one's sneaky. Even when you change your behavior, you might still assume the worst. They don't care. They don't listen. They're doing this on purpose. And those inner stories will pull you back into defensiveness. When you're stuck in story, you can misread everything. You fill in the blanks with old fears, reacting to your story instead of to your partner's actions and intentions. One couple told me, we're talking, but we're not hearing each other. That happens when we focus just on learning communication skills, like I statements. They're helpful when your nervous system is calm and your emotional brain is in the back seat. When your nervous system is hijacked, even the right skills, they're not going to land because your brain isn't listening for connection. It's scanning for danger, criticism, threat, signs. This isn't okay. Researchers know when triggered, your brain is wired to hear things differently. Tones, intonations. So even if your partner says all the right things, you're not going to hear them as they were said. You're both talking, but neither is actually hearing. So use this key phrase. This phrase is magical. I teach all my clients. I use it all the time. Before you state something as a fact, start with the story in my head is. The story in my head is. The story in my head is you're not listening. Sounds different than you're not listening and you don't care, right? The story in my head is remind your partner and you that there is a chance that you're stuck in story. It makes your statement less heavy. This gives your partner the opportunity to correct versus defend. When couples use this magic phrase, it creates a pause. It opens space for clarity instead of conflict. So if you want to know more about the story in my head is, please click this card up here because I dive way more into it there. Mistake number 5, having no system to release pressure. I worked with a couple, let's call them Mia and Jordan. They loved each other, committed, but they would get into intense arguments. One would snap over something small like how the dishwasher was loaded. Why are you putting a pot on the top? That's where the glasses go. Suddenly, they were in a full-blown argument, pulling everything from the last week, the last month, 10 years ago into the situation about the dishwasher. Clearly, they weren't fighting about the dishwasher. The dishwasher was the spark that lit the fire under every unresolved issue they pushed down or they ignored. Most couples only talk about issues when they're triggered or in frustrating moments. Say that another way, they only talk about fire prevention after the house is already burning. And that leads to emotional blowups, resentment, snarky tones that feel like they come out of nowhere. But Mia and Jordan learned a fire prevention system for their relationship, something they could use before the flames kicked in, before the tension turned into resentment. For them, it was a powerful, simple check-in system I created for my clients. But for you, throughout the week, it can be anything that helps you both express yourselves consistently over time. Think of it like checking the smoke detectors to make sure they work. It won't stop the hard moments, but it keeps you from getting trapped in the blaze. When you don't have a simple system like this in place, when tensions rise and you start arguing, it makes everything feel harder to say. and even more hard to hear. But when you have a system to release the pressure consistently, you create safety, not just when things are easy, but for when things get hard too. Next, I'm going to share with you a bonus tip that you can use as a fire prevention tool to tune up your relationship so you're not overwhelmed when stress hits. But first, if this resonates with you, if you're tired of the same arguments and ready for lasting shifts, this is exactly why I created the relationship renovation. It's not therapy, it's not a course, it's a short but extremely powerful done with you strategy to help you stop spinning and start rebuilding in your relationship. Together, we're going to figure out what's really going on underneath the surface so you're not stuck arguing about tone and timing, but you're actually addressing the root patterns that keep pulling you off track. Okay? Together, we're going to spot your early warning signs and those U-turn moments so you can course correct before things spiral, before the fire gets too big. Also, we're going to create simple habits and reset cues that work in your real life, even when you're stressed, tired, or short on time. I'm also going to give you that powerful, simple check in that I talked about earlier that I give to all of my clients. That is a game changer that helps you keep those patterns consistently moving. And finally, you're going to renovate the way you do connection. So you're not just coexisting, you're building a relationship that feels solid, safe, and strong enough to hold together even when real life hits. All right. So you can check the description for a link if you want to learn more about that. The bonus that I'm going to share with you today is called the 2-minute tune up. Okay. If you don't have time for long talks, but you feel tension creeping in, try this. Each one of you is going to take 60 seconds to share one thing that you appreciate about the other. And then you're going to take 60 seconds to name one thing that would make your life easier. If helpful, take an extra minute, right, to brainstorm ways that each of you can implement what you said would make your life easier. But at least do the first 2 minutes. 2 minutes, zero drama, big results. All right. Until next time, have a great day. Bye.